Carbon removal from the atmosphere to combat climate change and conserving biodiversity are two mammoth challenges we are grappling with. Strikingly, the regions with the highest potential for carbon removal and rich biodiversity are often inhabited by the most impoverished communities. Navigating these intertwined issues compels us to find equitable and effective strategies to address both environmental and social concerns.
All three of these, climate change mitigation, biodiversity conservation, poverty alleviation, each one of these is addressed by separate programs. Schemes, laws, funding agencies, all kinds of instruments, they either deal with poverty or carbon or biodiversity separately. What we want to do is look at it together. I think it is extremely important to understand that there are parts of the world where all three of these come together. And we focus on one specific part of the landscape, the forest.
Existing research and media have fixated on the vast tropical or temperate forests, like the Amazon, Congo Basin, where deforestation rates are alarmingly high. There have been substantial developments in curbing deforestation there. However, there's another type of forest that often goes unnoticed. These forests are much smaller, covering only a few thousand hectares.
These small forests sequester carbon, harbor biodiversity, and provide for livelihood benefits to these poor people who live in or near these forests. These landscapes are high in population density, and these forests are also catering to a large number of demands for humanity. But these forests are also neglected. These forests are not particularly valuable commercially. Our focus is to look at these forests and try to identify strategies that can address multiple outcomes at the same time.
For example, take the tiny patch of forest in the Deccan Plateau. These forests may only cover 100 to 200 hectares, shared among 5 villages and 500 households. Some gather firewood, others graze animals, and during certain seasons, they rely on mahua flowers, mushrooms, and other foods for sustenance. Now, how do we assess the benefits of these forests? Not just for the local communities, but for the entire world? 1 ton of carbon sequestered anywhere has the same positive impact on the climate, whether it's saved in a power plant or a forest.
And if we can create systems where, in addition to carbon and livelihoods, we can also protect the native species that exist in that forest, then we have contributed simultaneously to 3 global problems. And we will do it 1 forest at a time. Instead of a global solution to all 3 problems, we can build it up 1 forest at a time, 1 community at a time, sometimes 1 species at a time. Our research question is simple. What factors contribute to positive outcomes on all of these 3 dimensions? Carbon sequestration, biodiversity conservation, and poverty alleviation.
The data for this paper comes from the International Forestry Resources and Institutions Research Program, which has been running for 32 years. This program was initiated by Elinor Ostrom, whose Nobel Prize-winning research looked at forests as a shared resource used by many households. To ensure these forests continue to benefit future generations, it's crucial that these households collaborate and collectively manage and protect the forest.
We use the data set that the research program she started has produced. The IFRI program, the International Forestry Resources and Institutions, has now a combined network of researchers from about 20 countries in the world, and all of them have contributed data to this research program.
The methodology used integrated surveys conducted by teams comprising a social scientist and a forest management specialist. These surveys involve interviews with local households, key informants, institutional leaders, and forest personnel. Additionally, 30 vegetation plots, each with a radius of 10 meters, were established to systematically study the forest's flora. This comprehensive approach provides nuanced insights into forest dynamics and conditions.
So we go and measure trees in terms of diameter at breast height or their species or their height and so on. Or we ask people about how much firewood they use and so on and so forth. This is raw data. It is then converted into indicators. So we create indicator about livelihood benefits, tree species richness, and we create indicator about the biomass that is available in the forest. These indicators are themselves standing in for larger concepts that we care about. So livelihood benefit stands in for poverty reduction, and tree species richness is standing in for biodiversity conservation. Similarly, biomass in a forest stands in for carbon sequestration in that forest. So we combine these two kinds of data, the survey data that we get by talking to people and the vegetation data that we go out into the forest to collect and calculate the three outcomes.
Forests serve dual purposes. They capture carbon and support diverse tree species, benefiting livelihoods. However, conflicts arise when activities like wood extraction compromise carbon storage. Managing these complexities is vital for sustainable forest practices. This research shows that 300 forests across 15 countries in Asia, Africa, and Latin America identified results as 5 clusters. Some excel across all measures, while others lag. Interestingly, diverse forests are evenly spread across continents, suggesting local factors drive performance rather than regional trends.
We want to know what can we change so that each forest can produce more of each benefit. More carbon is sequestered, more species are protected, more poverty is alleviated. Local communities who have the knowledge of that forest, who have lived there for generations and have developed rules based on that understanding of the dynamics of forest. These are not ecologists. They are sometimes not even very highly educated. But because they live there and they understand the forests from a very traditional knowledge perspective, they are always the best in terms of how the forest performs. And in places where these communities have been given the authority to make rules about these forests, where these communities even own that forest, those are the forests that produce the best outcomes. Those are the forests where all three outcomes are above average.
In India, the Forest Rights Act is designed to ensure that communities have access to forest resources. Working alongside multiple state governments, ongoing efforts seek to implement research findings, allowing communities to gain ownership and management control over forests. This collaborative approach, combined with the provision of essential information, shines the light on indigenous wisdom to enhance forest outcomes. These endeavors hold importance not only at the national level, but also globally.
We looked at terrestrial ecosystems, forests that are mostly on land and all on tropical regions. What we would like to do is extend it into alpine or temperate regions and most importantly into wetlands and mangroves. These are equally important ecosystems. They are covered by trees. They are really good at biodiversity conservation and carbon sequestration. They also provide so many other benefits, such as acting as nurseries for fisheries, for example. Our next step would be to extend our analysis to other ecosystems beyond forests.